Time for part 4 of renovating a Stuart 5A twin steam engine. This is removing the flywheel and cleaning it up, painting the flywheel and removing engine fittings. This of course is a Stanley knife blade, we all know what they look like, and they're very, very sharp indeed, but I find them one of the best little tools for removing keys from flywheels. I would never go in straight away with a screwdriver because you just make a mess of the key and a mess of the flywheel, but this is such a sharp blade. It will find its way down between the flywheel key and the flywheel itself. And a very, very gentle tap with a hammer, and I mean gentle. Whilst holding the blade with a pair of pliers, don't use your fingers, otherwise you may bleed onto the bench. I would also recommend suitable eye protection when doing this job, in case the blade shatters. Once the Stanley knife blade is tapped into place between the key and the flywheel, moving the key out slightly, you can then get a screwdriver point in there. As you can see, it's simplicity itself to remove the key. No damage to the flywheel and no damage to the key. The damage you see on the flywheel was not my doing. To save getting the oily residue on the crankshaft all over me, I thought I'd better wipe it off with a cloth first. And now to look at the flywheel. A question I ask is, these marks on the flywheel, are they the ones done by the maker, like on other parts of the engine, or is it just someone very ham-fisted with a hammer removing the key at some stage? We will never know, as now I'm going to remove those marks, and to do that I'm mounting the flywheel on a mandrel. I'm not going to machine the outer edge or the front surface of the flywheel, just to centre boss slightly to get rid of the marks, but I still need to make a very secure mandrel in exactly the same way as normal. Once the flywheel is mounted on the mandrel, using some Loctite 601 and with a live centre on the other end to keep it steady, I can machine the centre part of the boss to clean it up. At this stage I would like to apologise for the video wandering about a bit. At the front of this lathe are some duck boards that I stand on, some wooden boards on the concrete floor, and the camera is also mounted on a tripod on this board. So every time I move, the camera wobbles. I intend to put a stop to this, but not at the moment. I'm just cleaning up the outer edge of the flywheel because there were some chips out of the flywheel. And now I'm smoothing out the repair because I don't want it to be sharp to the hand. There are 1 or 2 marks on this flywheel, that's why I don't really want to take it any further. I'm just cleaning it up with coarse sandpaper followed by some Scotch-Brite. As I mentioned in the last episode, this is quite an industrial engine and it's not finely finished, so I'll leave the flywheel as it is, I think. Time now to take off all these oil unions. This part of the engine is very well made indeed. Someone's gone to a great deal of trouble to do this, and it's worth it because the crossheads are lubricated at both sides, the main bearings are lubricated, and also, in the large oil tank between the cylinders is a full wick system, so if you put oil in there, it doesn't just flood out, it slowly delivers the oil to all the bearing surfaces. Before I put this lubrication system back together, I'm going to clean up all the piping with some Brasso. It won't last very long, it'll soon go dull again, but it'll be nice to see it all glistening as it lubricates the engine. As I've said earlier on in this series, this is not a model engine, it's a full-size small engine, suitable for a steamboat up to around 20 feet in length. In the Stuart Models catalogue, it rates a 5A at 1.5 brake horsepower at 80 psi. So I assume that if this engine was fed with 80 psi, being 2 5As in tandem, it should give somewhere around 3 brake horsepower. But I am not a scientist, so I can only speculate on this. I'm sure someone's bound to write in to tell me the truth. Now it's time to take off the water pumps. I'm going to have a look at these water pumps because I can't be sure that they work, as most of the unions are missing. What I'm going to do is get them to work on the bench and then refit them to the engine and pipe them together into a sort of conjoined system. Critics of my use of an adjustable spanner will notice that I'm still using this adjustable spanner, and also I am not rounding the edges of the nut with it. I am a sensible type of engineer. If the adjustable spanner does not undo the nut, I do not proceed any further, I get a proper spanner. The whole point in my using an adjustable spanner for these kind of jobs is to speed the job up. It's much quicker than looking around the bench and in the drawer for the correct size spanner. But once again I must say that all adjustable spanners are definitely not created equal. Some of the shiny ones that you get that are very cheap need to be thrown away, they're terrible things. This is a Bahco, B-A-H-C-O. Not a very pretty looking thing, it's quite dark in colour. I've had it for 35 years and it's still as good as the day I bought it. A bit like me really, old and knackered, but most of my parts still work well. You will notice on this nut there are some chewed up marks. This has not been done by me, this has been done by someone else before I got my hands on the engine. Right, that's the second water pump removed. So I'll look at these in due course. The next episode there's going to be a lot of painting in it. So here we will have a dummy run. In comes the paintbrush from the left. Now normally I would paint the flywheel green, the same colour as the rest of the engine. But as this is a very big engine, I'm going to paint it red. Just to say, danger, red is danger, keep your hands away from this nasty part that will take your hands off, or worse. So be warned, if you play around with steam engines other than the small toy ones, be very careful where you put your fingers. Even the 1-inch bore smaller Stuart type can give you a really nasty nip. I speak from experience. This is Humbrol enamel, and it's very good paint. It's not quite as good as the precision paint stuff that I normally use, but I have a few tins of this that I bought a while back. It will need more than one coat, and it's very important not to put it on too thick, because it will go crinkly and a bit nasty. So this is just the first coat. I'll be doing more of this very soon. And while I've got a tin of red Humbrol open, this is just the right colour for the recess part of the steam chest around the S. For this job I'm using a smaller paintbrush if you hadn't noticed already. And it doesn't really matter if you get some on the S and some around the edge, because once the paint's dry it will come off really easily. Do not put too much on. This is thinner paint than precision paints and it runs like anything. The main thing is confidence. Just get on with it, don't dither about. If you make a mess of it and it runs everywhere and looks terrible, then a little bit of cellulose thinners, or lacquer thinners as it's called, will remove the paint and you can start again. I find this strangely absorbing. It's more difficult than it looks, and I really take my hat off to sign writers. The old sign writers who used to sign write the railway engines and carriages. That's a rare talent these days. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. I hope you found it useful.